Look, guys, I don't know if the vibes have ever been this bad for the Cavs. Like, I know we've had some really bad Cavs seasons, but it's always worse when you have expectations, right? There have been years where we know the Cavs are going to be bad. We knew Colin Sexton's rookie year that was going to be a bad season, but this year the Cavs were supposed to be good. We didn't think they were going to be 64 wins again, but we thought they were going to be much better than they are. And so, at least during the Donovan Mitchell era, I think, this might be the darkest it's ever been. The only other time it felt like this outside of the playoff losses was like the 2023 regular season, where every time they lost a game, it felt like the Donovan Mitchell trade request was just a moments away. But right now, this feels worse because I think we know what the Cavs are capable of every night, right? Like we saw that they won 64 games last season, and you can say what you want, but I'll die on this hill. I think if the Cavs stay healthy last season, they have as good of a chance as anyone to win the championship that year, or at least they had a chance, right? The door was open. Whether or not you think that they could have actually beaten OKC or New York or even Indiana at full strength, I think most people agree that when the Cavs were healthy, they at least had a chance at winning the title, right? But that door slammed shut on them last season pretty abruptly, and we all expected that the door would open again this year, but there's no guarantees in life, and we have been learning that the hard way. Like I said, I didn't expect the Cavs to win 64 games this season. I knew there would be some regression, and I even saw some of the writing on the wall for the issues that they've had to start this year, right? We talked about it in our previews. Anyone could have predicted that they would struggle shooting the ball to start the year when you consider that three of last year's best shooters were unavailable. That's Ty Jerome, who obviously is gone, Darius Garland, who has been hurt. We knew he would be, and Max Strus, who hasn't even played yet. So we knew that the offense was going to take a hit without those guys, but it's been an even bigger hit than we expected. And the team is currently 13-10. Now, I've mentioned these stats before, but I'm going to keep bringing them up because I just think they're crazy. The Cavs last season didn't lose their 10th game until February 4th, and they didn't lose their 11th game until March 16th last season, which just feels incomprehensible right now. The Cavs very well could lose their 11th and 12th games this weekend if they aren't careful in a back-to-back against San Antonio and Golden State. And so I figured, like, let's just go over how we got to this point. I want to run down a list again of some of the things that are going wrong. And first things first, we got to get this out of the way. I know it can be annoying. I mentioned in my last video too, but you can't talk about this Cavs team without mentioning this. They're injured. They're beat up. If you look at the rotation against Portland last night, where they lost a very frustrating game, and listen, let me tell you, injuries are not an excuse for what happened against Portland, but it is worth pointing this out because if you look at the rotation of who played against the Blazers last night, and you think back to last season, if we look at last season's 8-man rotation in the playoffs, so the 8 players who played the most minutes, the Cavs only had 4 of those players available against Portland on Wednesday. You could argue they only had 3 because Darius Garland doesn't look like Darius Garland. So you only had 4, maybe 3 players. That's half of your rotation from the playoffs last year. And, Dean Wade could be kind of on the fringe here. He was technically the 9th man in the rotation last year by minutes played, but it was close between him and Merrill. Even if you still counted Wade, you're missing Allen, Strus, Sam Merrill, and like I said, you're basically missing Darius Garland right now too. So of course this team is going to look worse than they did last season. Of course they're going to struggle, right? Because if you just pretended that those players that I mentioned just weren't on the roster at all, like not only are they injured, but they're not on the team, and you looked at the current available players, yeah, I mean, this team wouldn't have championship expectations. No one would look at this team as a title contender. We would say the Cavs are a play-in hopeful who maybe best case scenario could be like the 4th or 5th seed, right? At best. So that's important to keep in mind because the guys who have been on the floor should not be the guys who are going to be on the floor in April. If they have, if there's some stroke of luck and this team magically is healthy or at least close to full strength in April, then half of their rotation is going to be completely different from what we're seeing right now. And everything that we have seen through 23 games might just be irrelevant because, again, it just won't be the same players on the court. So that's important to keep in mind. But with that said, their issues right now are not things that you can ignore or just dismiss because of injuries, right? Against Portland, the Cavs shot 13 for 52 on 3-point attempts. That is unbelievably bad. That's like inexcusably bad, right? And it's not just because you're missing shots, but to me, it signals that your team right now is currently an unserious team. You don't take 52 threes when you're shooting 25% and expect to be taken seriously. At some point, someone has to get to the paint. Someone has to change up their approach. You can't just keep firing away. Like Lonzo Ball is taking shots like he's still in Chino Hills and his team is up by 60 points. I don't understand how a player who otherwise is like a basketball savant, a basketball genius, still somehow has like this poor level of shot selection. It's actually maddening to watch him sometimes because he'll do something that is like so brilliant on defense or playmaking. And then he just takes the worst shot attempt you've ever seen. And he's shooting under 30%. Dean Wade is shooting under 30%. DeAndre Hunter is barely above 30% from deep. And Naquan Tomlin, even, who, he's otherwise been very helpful this season, is shooting 18% from deep. And teams have realized that they don't even have to guard him at all, right? Like, sure, Tomlin can still be effective because he's the energy guy. He plays defense. He'll crash the glass. If you get him the ball in the paint, he'll score. But against Portland, they just straight up said, go ahead, take a three. We don't care. They left him completely wide open and he couldn't make a shot. I think he made one, but like it's not good. It's just bad. It's all bad. Even the energy guys who deserve a bunch of credit, they're not ready for this moment, right? Like if Naquan Tomlin is going to be in your rotation as like a legit guy, you're not a championship contender. And that's absolutely nothing against Naquan, but like he's a two-way guy. He's not even on a standard contract yet. So it just kind of shows how bad the situation has gotten. And what's most concerning is that, yes, the effort can be better. We can nitpick and fix a whole bunch of different things. Part of taking 52 threes is that, you're settling for jumpers instead of putting your head down, attacking the basket, staying committed to running a good offense, which takes effort. They're also getting beat in transition on defense. They're getting shredded at the point of attack defensively. So much of that is energy and effort. But even if they fix all of that, they're shooting the ball a little bit better, they're playing as hard as anyone else in the NBA, there would still be one thing that's hanging over the entire team, and that's Darius Garland's toe. If this is the version of Darius Garland that we're going to get all season, then we're cooked. I mean, this team is just screwed. I don't know how else to say it. There's no way around it. I know that DG has hardly played this season, and so he still has to get a rhythm and everything, but if his mobility looks like this, I don't know where they go from here. You can't convince me that Darius is operating at anything more than like 65% right now. He looks so bad from a mobility standpoint. He is not moving around the court well at all. And it really shows if you're at a game and you're watching him away from the ball, away from where the camera will usually catch him. This man is hurting. Like he is visibly limping around the court at times. I can't imagine a worse player to have an injury like this because, like, listen, I love Darius Garland. I've been one of the biggest DG defenders on the planet. We know how good he can be when he's healthy. But if you take away that burst and that stop and go dribble, which is what that toe injury is doing, then he's one of the least valuable players in the NBA, right? And I'm not saying this because I love to say it, but if you have an undersized guard who can't get to the rim, can't create for himself, and he's this limited in terms of his mobility, then it's not good. And again, like, listen, we know how good, like, I know how good Darius Garland is when he's healthy. This is an all-star. This is a borderline all-NBA player. If you get that guy, if you get the all-star, all-NBA version of Darius Garland, and the rest of the team is healthy and they're trying harder and some shots start falling, then all of a sudden the Cavs are title contenders again. It could happen overnight. But even if everything else about this team does get fixed, if Darius is still a shell of himself, then they really have no chance. And that is what the most concerning thing is. I don't see a path forward for this team if DG isn't able to get healthy. And look, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't tell you what's exactly going on with the toe injury. But my assumption and what it seems that we've been hearing in reports is that this is just kind of the reality that Darius has to work through, right? If taking a few weeks off or another month off would have helped him recover and heal, then I think they would be doing that. At least I would hope that would be the approach that they take. But because they're not, because he is on the court right now, it signals to me, and this is again, what the reports seem to be. Say it one more time, not a medical professional, but it seems like this is an injury that Darius Garland is just going to have to work through. This is just going to be something that lingers, and he's going to have to find a way to work around it or work through it, because if it was going to get better by resting, I think he would be resting. And so, listen, hopefully, if we're trying to be optimistic, maybe we get to March and he's moving better and he's ready for the playoffs. And that's the most important thing. I'm completely okay with him looking like this in December if it means he'll be healthy in March and April. But right now, he's so limited and the injury is so just murky and we don't have enough details that I don't know what they can do. I don't know where they go from here. The last note that I have kind of ties in with everything that I've been saying in this video. And honestly, I've said this for years. The Cavs are a team that has been built with a very delicate balance. The core four inherently gives you a delicate balance because the identity of this team is you have the two guards and the two bigs that complement each other and they cover up for each other's weaknesses, right? The supporting cast has been hand selected around them over the years to provide some redundancy and some insurance for whenever things go wrong. So last season when they were at their best, Ty Jerome's there if Garland or Mitchell don't have it going. Dean Wade and DeAndre Hunter could play the four if Mobley or Allen weren't playing great and you had to go small. And also just something that, almost goes underrated or unnoticed is that Jarrett Allen played 82 games last season. So the Cavs never even had to wonder what it would look like if Allen wasn't out there. This season, that's been gone. The redundancy is gone. The depth and the insurance is gone. They haven't been as healthy. The talent on the bench is just worse. Wade has been bad. He's regressed. Hunter obviously is in the starting lineup, so he's no longer on the bench. He's not playing the backup four as often. Jerome, as we know, is not here anymore. Strus and Merrill are hurt. DG is hurt. Allen is hurt. There's no connective tissue here anymore. There is no core four that is keeping this thing together. And like I said, when you have that delicate balance that's always been there, it's been the Jenga tower. When you take a piece away from that, it can crumble. And if you take a bunch of pieces out of the Jenga tower, then it's what we're seeing right now. Even when they're all healthy, if Donovan or Evan or DG, whoever, one of the core four is struggling or unable to do their job, then we have seen that the Cavs become very vulnerable. And that's the reality of being a team that, your best player is a 6'3" guard who, Mitchell's incredible. He's an absolute stud, but he's in the 8 to 10 range of the NBA, right? He's not like the universal best player on the planet or even really someone who could reasonably be put into that discussion. And so when you have a team like that, or when your best player is a player like that, you have to rely on the full team. You have to rely on a core four. And so that's kind of the tough situation that they've been in. And again, when you remove some of those pieces, then, it's going to feel like it does right now. So the vibes are bad. They're going to stay bad until this team is healthy. If that ever happens, health is the one thing that gives them a chance at fixing any of this. That is the one non-negotiable because, yes, there's a bunch of different things that we could talk about, and I'm sure we'll get into it as the season goes on, but health is the underlying factor here. If they can't get healthy, then they really have no chance of fixing any of this other stuff. So for better or worse, we're going to be following them all season. So if you like this video and you want to support my coverage, then please drop a like, hit the subscribe button, follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, check out Fear the Sword, where we have a bunch of great content going up. Leave me a comment with your biggest concern about the Cavs right now. Thanks so much for watching. And with all that being said, go Cavs.